This is the face of the wretched piece of filth responsible for slaughtering 3 innocent young children last year at the Taylor Swift themed dance. Parents dropped their children off that day who had no idea that they would never be seeing them again. The offender, whose name I'm not going to mention because frankly, the less people say this piece of filth's name, the better. As far as I'm concerned, this individual can be sentenced to life in prison, rot in a cell for the rest of their life, and no one ever utter their name again. They were charged with 3 counts of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder, possession of ricin, and also links to Al-Qaeda, the terrorist organisation. Also, the possession of ricin is quite worrying because that indicates potentially there was a further attack going to be planned. Now, as a result of what this person did, nationwide riots are sparked in the UK at the outrage of what had happened. And more interestingly, those who expressed their concern about this incident and also radicalisation, terrorist motivation, and people who express their concern, discontent, and outright displeasure at the levels of immigration related to this country quickly found themselves in a pair of handcuffs and thrown in prison. This was done under the guise of stopping spreading of misinformation and of the spreading of hate online. Needless to say, the legislation which was used in order to imprison these people for thought crimes and online hate speech was quietly nudged through Parliament without any real media coverage. Now, it does make you wonder. And seeing the country being in a state of utter outrage as a result of what had happened, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, instead of listening to the concerns of his people, decided to label them as far-right thugs and instead criminalise them. Criminalising them for opinions which have now been validated. This person, albeit at the time was not treated as a terrorist, certainly seems that way, given the offences that he's pled guilty to and the material found in his home. Now the country sits and waits for the sentencing of this individual. If they were 18, it is likely that this person would have been given a whole life order. A whole life order means they will never ever be released from prison. One of the most recent people to receive such a life order was serial killer Lucy Letby, who was a neonatal nurse at the Countess of Chester who was convicted of murdering several children. However, not a lot of people know that a life sentence for the offence of murder does not necessarily mean you spend your entire life behind bars. What a life sentence entails is that you will serve so much of a sentence in custody and then you are released on licence and you are able to be recalled to serve the rest of that sentence at any point throughout the rest of your life if you commit a further offence. However, with this person being under the age of 18, it will be very interesting to see what they get sentenced. Obviously, there are guidelines relating to perpetrators of such acts of criminality under the age of 18. One of the most recent cases was the murder of Brianna Jai, in which the killers Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe each received 20 and 22 years in custody. I attended that incident. I was one of the first people there. I was one of the first responders that attended that incident when it happened, and it was brutal. It was awful what those 2 people did to Brianna, and it still does occupy my mind now. Even though time has passed, it still does play in my mind when I think about what I saw that day and what happened. So I would like to take this opportunity to please say, let's think about the officers and the paramedics that attended the Southport incident, because no doubt what they saw, they will never, ever be able to forget. So the question is now, what will happen to this individual? He turns 18 next week. Will the sentencing be postponed so he's tried as an adult? Even if he turns 18, still be trialed as a child. It'll be very interesting to see what the outcome of this case will be. All I would like to say is that no matter what sentence is given to this individual, any sentence will not be long enough. However, now that the band-aid has been ripped off this very fresh wound relating to this I was going to say human being, but I think that's a little bit too polite. Your parents told you when you were a child that monsters weren't real. And I can guarantee you, as someone who was a police officer for just under 10 years, monsters are very real and they are all around you. However, what I will say is let us not focus our vitriol and our hatred on this person, but instead let us remember the 3 children that died on that fateful day. Elsie Dot Stancombe, Alice De Salvia Aguiar, and BB King. 3 small children that woke up that day, same as they do every day, ate their breakfast, said hello to their families, and left for school, never to return. Let us also focus our thoughts on the communities that were damaged by the riots which ensued afterwards. And also let us take a pause and think about the officers and the paramedics and the first responders that went to that initial incident, apprehended the suspect, and tried to save, revive, and support the people that were affected by this incident.